thank Mrs. Anuja Vijayasekara for making the invitation to speak to the dear friends in the Servants of Buddha group. So I really appreciate this opportunity to share this Dhamma with people who are gathered here. So without much ado, I'll straight go to, I chose the Sutta, Asivisopama Sutta. Oh, I'll start by saying Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So I chose Sutta, Asivisopama Sutta, for this session. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya, I think section 4, 238. So I'll straight go to the sutta. I won't be reading the whole sutta, but I'll read bits of it. And it's a sutta which explains our human existence. And it has a lot of similes. They're very poignant similes. For me, Buddha's teachings is such that Buddha has a very clever way of teaching. He always incorporates similes to explain the Dhamma point he's trying to put across. And I find that very useful because the simile make it alive for me. And this sutta has a lot of similes. So the sutta goes, I'm sure the Buddha is addressing some bhikkhus. It goes, bhikkhus, suppose there were 4 vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom. Then a man would come along, wanting to live, not wanting to die, desiring happiness and averse to suffering. They would tell him, good man, these 4 vipers are of fierce heat and deadly venom. From time to time, they must be lifted up. From time to time, they must be bathed. From time to time, they must be fed. From time to time, they must be bathed. From time to time, they must be fed. From time to time, they must be laid to rest. But if one or another of these vipers ever becomes angry with you, then, good man, you will meet death or deadly suffering. Do whatever has to be done, good man. So I'll stop there. So this is the 4 vipers. Later on in the sutta, well, as I said, I won't read the whole sutta. So Buddha compares these 4 deadly vipers to 4 great elements. As we know, the 4 great elements, the Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu in Pali, and it's the element of extension, element of cohesion, element of heat, and element of motion. So we all beings, anything, any material thing is made of these 4 elements, the 4 element of extension, the hardness, the element of cohesion, the cohesive, the binding nature, the element of heat, the maturing nature, and the air, the element of motion. So what does he say? Comparing these 4 vipers to 4 elements. And we are made of these 4 elements. So it's a very good, this kind of thing, the 4 elements it's a good form of meditation. I personally find in most suttas, the Dhamma point that Buddha is trying to put across can be used as a meditation object, because meditation is contemplation and reflection. And if we contemplate and reflect it, that's meditation. That's what the Buddha was saying. Meditation is contemplation and reflection. So the Buddha says that these 4 vipers, they need to be looked after. If they get disturbed, and we can reflect like this in our meditation as well. If they get disturbed, we are supposed to, the person is supposed to feel suffering, or deadly suffering, or end up in death. So what is Buddha trying to put across here? So if you look at the world at large, when the four elements get disturbed, we have tsunamis, the hurricanes, floods. In the same way, in these bodies, when these four elements are disturbed, we fall ill and die. So that's the way to look at the four elements. And then Buddha says that these four elements, they need to be lifted up. The four vipers needs to be lifted up, bathed, fed, and laid to rest. So in the same way, these bodies, we all know from the time we are born, this body cannot sit in one posture for too long. We have to move the posture. We have to sit, walk, lie down, and even sitting in one posture, one has to move around to alleviate the pain. So this is the suffering Buddha was talking about in the First Noble Truth. The suffering we are supposed to understand according to the First Noble Truth. So Buddha is explaining that these four vipers need to be lifted up and bathed and put to rest and fed from time to time. And in the same way, these bodies have to go through the same scenarios. So, how long do I have? I didn't ask that. Anyway, never mind. In the same way, we have to, when we are born, so this fathom-long body, Buddha said, in this fathom-long body is the world we create. And this fathom-long body is the laboratory. This is the place we can understand this human existence, this body and this mind. That is what we have to contemplate and reflect on to be able to understand Buddha's teaching. So this is the laboratory we are working on, this body and the mind. So with these bodies, as Buddha said, we have to do this with the four vipers and with the bodies, with the four elements. We create this body. This body is four elements. So we make it me and mine. But before going to that, this body is made of four elements. So if I move to how we can use this as a meditation on four elements. Now we have unskillful thoughts, skillful thoughts that arise. We all know the body, we know how the body falls sick, but in the mind, there are skillful thoughts and unskillful thoughts that arise. There are feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and so on. There are feelings regarding gain, reputation. They arise due to kilesa called Maitriya in Pali. And if you translate it to English, it's translated as stinginess or avarice, that is being greedy and trying to keep everything for oneself. So this is stinginess. I will use the word stinginess for the word Pali, Maitriya, Pali word Maitriya. So how can we overcome stinginess? Giving can help to overcome stinginess. Giving includes material things as well as we have amisadana, abhayadana, and dhammadana. So amisadana is giving material things. Abhayadana is fearlessness, making feel comfortable around you, and also giving life to animals, and also dhammadana. So by giving, we can overcome greed and hatred. So by giving, merit grows. So if we are to relinquish the Maitriya or the stinginess that we have in the mind, giving helps. And when the Maitriya is, the stinginess is relinquished, we have happiness. Giving leads us to happiness. It leads to joy and pamoda. So that in that way we can overcome hatred and greed, anger and hatred. So by giving, anger can be overcome. So it's by relinquishing only we can overcome this anger. And if you are giving, if you have this giving nature, people don't harbor anger towards the person who's giving. But of course, they will harbor anger towards a greedy person. So now when you refer to how these skillful thoughts and unskillful thoughts arise, all unskillful thoughts arise due to material things. Yes, it's always due to a material thing. How does feelings for gain and feelings regarding gain and reputation arise? Because of a material thing. And this material thing we talk about, what is this material thing made of? 4 elements. And we are fighting for 4 elements, really. And people will never try to steal a beautiful mind state one has come to in meditation, like a jhanic state. People are not stealing that. But for material things, people have a lot of desire, which is mainly things that are made from 4 elements. So these 4 elements, which we have in our body, in all material things, and 4 elements in the world, are they different? The 4 elements in the world, are they the same as the 4 elements in this body? This is the way to question the 4 elements and meditate on it, and how we can overcome the relinquished 4 elements just by giving up the desire for the 4 elements, the relinquishing aspect, just like by giving material things. So we can contemplate and reflect on the 4 elements in this way. So the 4 elements in the body are the same as the 4 elements in the world. We collect it when we are born. These 4 elements come together. We make it into a package. We wrap it up. We make it beautiful. We give this package a name, and this package is mine. But the 4 elements are the basic component of it, which is in the outside this body. Those 4 elements are no different to the 4 elements inside this body. So that's one way of reflecting on 4 elements as a meditation object. So I just thought I'll bring that in to able to understand the 4 elements. And when we reflect on these 4 elements in this way, so the perception of self, we can understand how the self is created with this mind. And then when we look at it, the 4 elements in this way, we look at these bodies in that way, the wisdom arrives. This allows us to give right view, establish right view. We can establish right view, and we are on the path. Then once we have established the right view. So going back to the sutta now, because that's the 4 elements. I think that's enough for the 4 elements. Then going back to the sutta, then the Asivisopama Sutta now. Then bhikkhus, afraid of the 4 vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom, that man would flee in one direction or another. They would tell him, "Good man, 5 murderous enemies are pursuing you," thinking, "Wherever we see him, we will take his life right on the spot. Do whatever has to be done, good man." So now Buddha brings in for 5 murderous enemies. Yes. 5 murderous enemies. So the 5 murderous enemies are compared to the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates, because these living beings are 4 elements, 5 aggregates as well. So we can dissect into 4 elements and dissect this body into 4 elements and 5 aggregates. So now Buddha is comparing these 5 murderous executioners or murderous enemies to 5 aggregates. So what are the 5 aggregates? It's the form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. So again, the form is made of 4 elements. So there's a connection. It flows from one to another. And then the feelings, we have 3 kinds of feelings: pleasurable, not pleasurable, and neither pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant. Then they can be bodily feelings and mental feelings. Then we have the perceptions, where we recognize the blue, yellow color, and also whatever we feel, we perceive. And the problem we have is we perceive wrongly. We don't perceive things as anicca, dukkha, anatta, that is unsatisfactoriness and impermanence and not self. We see things as pleasurable and we expect them to last and we try to make it mine. That's how we see these. That's where we go wrong. The perception is where we are faulted at all times. We have to train our minds to perceive things in the correct way according to Buddha's teachings. That's the work for all of us. And then the volitional formations. The volitional formations are, there are 3: kaya sankara, vaci sankara, mano sankara. That's actions, bodily actions, verbal actions, and mind actions. Then we have the consciousness, 6 kinds of consciousness: the ear, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind consciousness. So these are the 5 khandhas. So now, before I just branch off to another sutta now to explain these 5 khandhas, because I find this sutta is very useful to understand what Buddha was why Buddha compared the 5 khandhas to murderous enemies. It's called the Khemaka Sutta. It's a bhikkhu called Khemaka had a wrong view, and it's a long sutta, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. And Venerable Sariputta is explaining to him and trying to get him out of his wrong view. So I take an extract from that. If I read that now, Khemaka, this is from the middle of the sutta I'm reading. Khemaka, there is a householder or the son of a householder who's very rich with much wealth, resources, and also protected. He has an enemy who desires to destroy him, to kill him for some reason. He contemplates, this householder is rich, has wealth and resources, and is protected. It is not easy to get at him and kill him forcefully. What if I encroach and kill him? So he approaches that householder and tells him, shall I attend on you, sir? So he gets up before him and sleeps after he sleeps, does his biddings and speaks kindly. Thus, he builds a close relationship and wins his favor and becomes his designer. Then, knowing that there is secrecy, he kills him with a sharp weapon. Khemaka, when that man approached the householder and said, Sir, I will attend on you, would the householder have known this is my assassin? He continually intends to kill me. When that man got up before him, slept after him, did his biddings, and spoke kindly, would the householder have known this is my assassin? He continually intends to kill me. When he snatched a secret chance and designed to kill him, would the householder have known this is my assassin? He continually intends to kill me? No, friend, he would not have known that. So it goes to say, in the same manner, the person, somebody who is not familiar with the Buddha's teachings, how we take the five khandhas as self. So now this little sutta I read explains it beautifully. If I take time to explain it, Buddha says that, not Buddha, sorry, Sariputta is saying to Yamaka that, but it is based on Buddha's teachings, that there is this person who has an enemy, and this enemy wants to kill this householder who's rich and he's well protected. But he knows, because he's rich and well protected, it's not easy to kill him. So he conjures a plan to befriend him and gets to attend on him. And once he becomes his friend, he slowly at the correct time kills him. So and that's what the question is asked. If the householder had known that he's inviting his murderer, his assassin, into the house, he would have never done it. But unknowingly, he innocently let this murderer into the house and he dies. So the five khandhas are the body. So in the same way, we create this existence. We are born into these five khandhas. We create the five khandhas, not knowing one day this body will kill us, because we get heart disease, we get cancer, we get all sorts of things, and it's the body that kills us. We can come meet with an accident or something like that. In the end, it's the body that kills us. So we let the five murderous enemies in unknowingly, and we get born again and again, not understanding this nature of the five khandhas. We create the five khandhas over and over again. So I find that's a very beautiful way of contemplating. I know it's a very strong simile that's being put across, but it does give us the message. That's why I find the similes are so helpful. We are able to look at in the true sense what Buddha was trying to explain to us, to how to overcome this samsaric journey by not being attached to these bodies. So going back to the sutta, so now this man, then he carries on in the same manner. Then bhikkhus, afraid of the four vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom, and of the five murderous enemies, that man would flee in one direction or another. They would tell him, "Good man, a sixth murderer, an intimate companion, is pursuing you with drawn sword," thinking, "Wherever I see him, I will cut off his head right on the spot. Do whatever has to be done, good man." So it's a very interesting story, isn't it? It's becoming to a nice story how we are all running from the murderous enemies and calamities. So this murderer with drawn sword, that's compared to delight and lust. It's all explained later on in the sutta, but I'll bring it as soon as I read each paragraph. So the murderer with drawn sword is delight and lust. That's Nandi Raga. And that's in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, that's how Buddha explained the second noble truth. The second noble truth being the dukkha samudaya satya, dukkha samudaya satya, yetasaya Nandi raga sahagata tata tatra binandini seyatidam kamatanha bhavatanha vibhavatanha. That's how we explained how we roam in samsara with this delight and lust from one birth to another. So this delight and lust is our intimate companion according to the Asivisopama Sutta. Coming back to the Asivisopama Sutta, we have this delight and lust with us all the time. Whenever we see an object, particular object, the greed arises. And what happens? It fills one's head. That's what it's the murderous, intimate, murderous It's an intimate companion, this murderous enemy who's pursuing us with a drawn sword, waiting to be killed. Our head will be cut off. As soon as the delight arrives, what happens? The head of wisdom gets cut off. That's what it's trying to say. So we get into delight and lust, we born into greed, and rebirth take place. So it's an intimate companion. This fourth, the third simile, the murderous enemy, murderous assassin with a drawn sword. So that's the comparison between that and our existence. So going back to the sutta, then the bhikkhus, afraid of the four vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom, and of the five murderous enemies, that man would flee in one direction or another. They would tell him, good man, a sixth murderous and intimate companion is pursuing you with drawn sword. So I just explained it. And then he's running away from these four vipers and fierce deadly heat, with deadly heat and deadly venom, and of the five murderous enemies, and the sixth murderer, the intimate companion with the drawn sword. Then the man would flee in one direction or another. He would see in an empty village. Whatever house he enters is void, deserted, empty. Whatever pot he takes hold is void, hollow, empty. They would tell him, good man, just now village attacking dacoits will raid this empty village. Do whatever has to be done, good man. So this empty village is compared to the six internal sense spaces. That's the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the six internal sense bases. So why is it called an empty village? Because with these eyes, ears, with the eye we take the form, with the ear we take the sound. We are supposed to be empty of forms and sound in the eye. So that's why it's compared to the empty village. But our eyes and ears are not empty, because the dacoits, the village attacking dacoits, are occupying our eyes, because we take forms constantly. We take forms into the eye, we take sounds into the ear, so on and so forth, taste to the tongue, tactile objects to the body, and mind, eye thoughts, opinions, ideas into the mind. So that's why Buddha is comparing these six internal bases should be empty of objects. That's the practice for us, how we can do it, to be aware that when we look at something, how we take the signs and features of this object. We look at something, we take the signs and features, and we create our own story. There's a big essay written inside, isn't it? We have the whole, the past or the future can come into it, and that's what happens when you look at something, or when you hear a word, how we are triggered into a whole story. And that's what the practice is. We have to empty these six internal sense spaces. We must not allow the dacoits, that's the next one Buddha is talking about in this sutta, to enter into the eye. So if I read that, then bhikkhus, afraid of the four vipers of the fierce heat and deadly venom, and of the five murderous enemies, and of the sixth murderer, the intimate companion with drawn sword, and the village attacking dacoits. Okay, so no, I didn't read that. So then the village attacking dacoits are the external sense bases. That's the form, the sound, the odors, the tastes, the tactile objects, and thoughts and opinions, views. So we have to be aware when we take these external objects into the mind and how we make much out of it. Our whole life, the whole story is created internally by looking at something or by seeing something. So that's the comparison to the empty village is the internal sense bases, and the village attacking the coins are the external sense bases, which we take in and we make. That is the world we live in. That is our world, isn't it? This is the world we live in. So now it goes further. So then bhikkhus, afraid of the 4 vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom, and of 5 murderous enemies, and of the 6th murderer, the intimate companion with drawn sword, and of the village attacking the coils, that man would flee in one direction or another. He would see a great expanse of water whose near shore was dangerous and fearful, and whose further shore was safe and free from danger. But there would be no ferry boat or bridge for crossing over from the near shore to the far shore. So this person is running. So still the running continues. And it comes to a great expanse of water. That's these 4 this expanse of water. It is the floods the floods of existence, the flood of sensual desire, the flood of existence, the flood of views, and the flood of ignorance. That's what called Oga, and in Sinhalese it's called Oga Taranaya. That means once we have this lust and delight, and when we are so caught up in greed, we are drowning in our desires. So we are drowning in our sensual desire. It's a flood of sensual desire. This desire has become overgrown so much. It has become into a flood. The mind is completely defiled, and we are swimming in the flood. So these 4 floods, the flood of sensual desire, the flood of existence, the flood of views, and the flood of ignorance. So that's what this man is coming across now, the floods, the great expanse of water. And in this great, when we face this great expanse of water, the near shore is dangerous, in this. So, but if I say a bit more about this great expanse of water, it is when we get to this flood of sensual desire, we try to make everything as mine, isn't it? By that time, we are so greedy, we really want what we are eyeing for. And there's a lot of desire to make it mine. There's a lot of tendency in this pleasurable feeling we have when we see this object. And that's how it becomes a flood. This tendency to attachment is overflowing, and it becomes a flood, and we are drowning in it. And that's how we are bound to samsara. This is the yoke of suffering that keeps us in samsara. That's how we roam in samsara, because we are attached to the family, we are attached to the job. This is just to observe. I mean, the Buddha's teaching is, it's not judging. This is what's happening in this existence. As long as we observe and understand, hopefully we can live the life in an easeful way through this understanding, because it's common for all human beings. It's not only for this human being. All human beings go through this charade, yes? Or anything that's born has to go through this anything with 5 khandhas. So it's not a judgmental thing, looking at this Dhamma. It's just observing and understanding this existence, so that we can observe and understand and live. We are born, we have to live this life. So it's just understand what's really going on with this existence. So in this in these floods, the near shore is fearful, and the further shore is calm. So what is the near shore? The near shore is the Sakkaya Ditthi, or the identity view. Basically, the 5 aggregates. I am, the thing that we create as I am. So we created this package, then we call it I am. It's we who are creating I, me, mineness. That's the self-nature we attach to these 5 aggregates, not understanding the Buddha's teachings, because Buddha was asking us to reflect on is that not self. But we are not there. We create the mindness and I-ness. So that's what the near shore is. And the further shore is Nibbana, because whose further shore was safe and free from danger. But there would be no ferry boat or bridge for crossing over from the near shore to the far shore. So the further shore is Nibbana. So there's nothing to cross. Then this man who is running away from everything that he has been pursued so far, the vipers, the 5 dangerous enemies, and the intimate companion with the drawn sword, and the 4 floods. And he's trying to create but there is no ferry boat. So let me collect grass, twigs, branches, and foliage. This is I'm reading from the Sutta, and bind them together into a raft, so that by means of that raft, making an effort with my hands and feet, I can get safely across to the far shore. So this man is now understanding what to do. He has been through all this trouble. So he's creating a raft with grass, twigs, branches, and foliage. What is this raft? This raft is the 4 Noble Truths. So finally, when we see things as they are, we can understand the Dhamma, we can contemplate Dhamma in this way, and be able to, through observance and contemplation and reflection in what's happening with this mind and body, we can create this raft, the Noble Eightfold Path, and we have to cross over with hands and feet. Making an effort with my hands and feet, I can get safely across to the far shore. And then the man would collect grass twigs and do it. So this effort he has to making an effort with my hands and feet. That's the 4-fold efforts in the Eightfold Path, Samavayama, the 4 great efforts. We need to make effort to get anywhere. We need to make an effort to even to stand up. So without the effort, we can't do anything. So this is the 4-fold effort in the Noble Eightfold Path, that is putting effort to prevent unwholesome things arising, and to overcome arisen unwholesome things. That is, we prevent our mind from any unwholesome thoughts arising, and if unwholesome thoughts have arisen, we make the effort to overcome them, and to make the effort to cultivate wholesome thoughts that have not arisen, and to develop the wholesome thoughts that have arisen even further. So that's the effort that we are supposed to put to use this raft and cross these dangerous waters. We make the effort with hands and feet. I can get safely across to the far shore. So going back to the sutta, then the man would collect grass, twigs, branches, and foliage and bind them together into a raft, so that by means of that raft, making an effort with his hands and feet, he would get safely across to the far shore, crossed over, and go on beyond. The Brahmin stands on the high ground. So the Brahmins stand on the high ground. That's the Arahat. So there's a happy ending to this story, which we have been running from all these dangerous, murderous enemies, vipers, floods. So it's when I look at it in the sutta in that way, it's a beautiful story, which gives us all the details about what the 5 khandhas, the 6 ayatanas, and the 4 elements are, that's the world we live in. That's our world. We create this world in this mind and body. And in the end, if we use the raft and cross over, there is peace. So it's a beautiful way of ending the story. And I won't read because I'm sure I have to stop now. I won't read the rest of the sutta because the rest of the sutta is all about how these similes, Buddha explains these similes in the same way, so you can read it. And that's all I like to say about this sutta. And I hope, thank you for your attention. I hope if it's helpful, please take it. If not, please leave it behind. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Sister. That was very nicely illustrated. Not an easy sutta because it is so long. I think the time management was perfect. Actually, Venerable Sister, you could take another 5 minutes if you wish to, because we like to actually get across there a little bit better. Having we can see the shore, but still a bit far.
Well, as long as we see the shore, I mean, count the blessings we have. We have the 4 Noble Truths and the 8-fold Path still alive. So it's up to us, isn't it? The job is entirely up to us. Isn't that the case? Because the Dhamma is still alive, and if we I don't know, if we kind of make the effort, because it's the 8-fold Path for me. There's nothing. All we need is the 8-fold Path. I mean, I heard the 8-fold Path. That's the thing that got to me when I first heard the teachings when I was growing up in Sri Lanka. I can't say I understood all the 8 factors, but some of them resonated with me. And as long as we establish right view, I think the important thing is establishing the right view. I mean, you all know what the right view is. The right view is knowing the 4 Noble Truths. There is dukkha, dukkha jnana, dukkha samudaya jnana, dukkha nirodha jnana, dukkha nirodhagamini patipadaya jnana. So we need to understand the 4 Noble Truths. And without understanding the dukkha, we cannot get anywhere, because it's not for pessimistic teaching. It's not understanding it to get depressed. No, to understand it, to see things as they are. If we look at things as they are, if we see things as impermanent, unsatisfactory, if things are impermanent and unsatisfactory, how can it be mine? That's the question we need to ask. And then the thing, yes, I missed out on the arising nature and the ceasing nature, because in the Satipatthana Sutta, I'll take a few minutes to explain this then. In the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha talks about after each foundation of mindful, there's a foundation, after each foundation, he talks about to observe these things internally, externally. And he said, Samudaya Dhammanupassīvā kāyasmiñ vihārati, Vaya Dhammanupassīvā kāyasmiñ vihārati, Samudaya Vaya Dhammanupassīvā kāyasmiñ vihārati. That means we have to see the arising nature and the ceasing nature. Everything arises and ceases. It has a very temporary existence. So how do things arise? Things arise when we take delight in something, when we welcome it and we remain holding on to it. It's abhinandati, abhivadati, ajosaya tittati. So to be aware that this delight and lust, the intimate companion, the sutta was talking about the murderous. It's if you have this graphic picture in your mind. There's this murderous companion with a drawn sword. You know, we'll be kicked, we will be hit, the wisdom head will be cut off. That's a very, very strong image, isn't it? If we take delight and if we be lustful and we get drowned in the floods, rebirth happens. So just reflect on that. It's not that we can just give up everything. No, that's not what's told. We have to give up everything. We have to stop everything. Just noticing when these things happen within this mind and body, the mind, especially in the mind, the lust and the how much we hold on to things. And as we grow older, I'm sure, I don't know, if we live 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, we understand this bit more, I suppose. That I'll just stop it by there. So it's just understanding that nature. That's all.